Olá e bem-vindos a Stanley Parable. Eu comprei esse jogo tipo 1 hora depois que ele lançou. Eu queria muito jogar, tava acompanhando os trailers e tudo mais. Tem uns trailers bem engraçados desse jogo. Jogo que eu quero jogar há muito tempo. Peraí. Sempre bom ter uma bebidinha de seu lado, né? Quando você for jogar. Eu mesmo coloquei essa legenda, então não reclame, por favor. Obrigado, tchau. Beijo.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Espera só um minutinho, vou sair da Steam. Beleza. Saiu pela sala. Eu vou seguir tudo que ele falar de começo. Vamos ver o que vai
All of his
acontecer.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ah, tá ligado aqui,
No
ó, tá
matter how
ligado.
hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Tá ligado aqui, ó. Desliguei. Vocês estão ligados? Não. Vamos lá. Meeting room. Vamos lá, vamos encontrar você. Ó. Onde então? Aqui não é. Você. Você. Ah. Pois. Não. Amarelo. É amarelo aquilo lá. Pode ser de não, vamos seguir. Vamos seguir. Vamos ver o que tem isso daqui. I hate Mondays. Eu odeio segunda-feira, é legal. Quem não odeia, não é? É o melhor dia da semana. É o dia que vem depois do domingo. E antes da terça. 2 dias antes da quarta e 3 depois da sexta. Opa.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
É agora. É agora. É esquerda, então. Tá bom. Não, mudei de ideia. Brincadeira, brincadeira.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Atrás do chefe. Alto sobre coworker. Como resolver problemas? Usar slides para segurar os empregados que tudo está tudo bem. Tudo bem, vamos lá. Chefe. Broom closet.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Eu quero mexer nas coisas, mas eu quero mexer.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Mas eu gostei daqui.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Essa vai ser a minha nova casa. Pode ficar quieto aí, Deus.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
Eu gostei daqui. Olha só, tem a chave de
You do
fenda.
realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
Mas tem uma fita.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Isso não é novidade, não. Eu sou mesmo.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose.
Eu tô vivo, eu tô
Hello?
vivo.
Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Eu vou. Tá bom, então. Acho que tem mais nada aqui dentro.
Second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Tá, chega, vambora.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Tudo bem, eu não vou mais bolejar não. Vamos pro chefe. Aqui é o chefe. Não, é aqui. Aqui deve ser o chefe. Hoje eu queria ir no banheiro. Esperar minha vez aqui. Não, vambora. Eu não tinha escolhido ainda. Eu queria mudar de ideia. Aqui. Não. Sofá. Podia ter como pular, né? Eu gosto de pular nos jogos. Olha só. E olha, ele pula. Conquistar o caçado. Mas eu queria pular.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
É, eu não sei. Vamos ver se eu acho aqui. 2845 2845. Vamos lá então.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs, trying to input anything on the yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck.
Eu devia ter errado.
He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Eu devia ter errado umas vezes, seria mais engraçado. Passei. Vai fechar? Vai fechar? Não. Opa. Tem pra cá. Nossa, tem alguma coisa pra cá. Olha só. Tô perdido. Tá tudo escuro. Vou sair daqui. Acorda, vambora. Meu Deus.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Estamos entrando numa jornada filosófica. Vamos nos conhecer melhor. Se você for... Opa! Desculpa, esse é meu mouse.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape! Eu vou, não vou. Eu vou, não vou. É muita tentação. Aí. Vamos fazer tudo certo, vai. Mas eu quero ir. Na próxima, na próxima. Vamos lá. Que é isso? Vai controlar a mente isso? Fechou já. Agora já era, não tem mais volta. Aperta.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Sim. Eu tenho a força para encontrar os segredos do quarto. Esse cômodo. Opa, tem uma travadinha. Quando o meu computador ruim, meu teclado, meu mouse ruim, tudo travado. Acho que já eu vou ter que fazer alguma coisa. Câmeras. Câmeras.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Meu Deus. Você aperta aí e faz barulho de teclado, olha só. Estamos em Matrix, meus amigos, meus caros amigos, telespectadores. Isso é Matrix. Completa Matrix. Acorda um barril, beleza.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Nossa. Estamos numa jornada de autodescobrimento. Se você tiver problemas para assumir sua homossexualidade para seus pais, essa é a sua chance.
He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Peraí. Resume the game. Pronto. Eu voltei exatamente onde a gente estava, fiz todas as coisas corretas para
But
seguir
here
a
was the
história.
proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Onde que eu tenho que ir então? Resumindo. Lá na Power, Facility Power, tem como voltar também. Será que tem ali 521? Eu vou pra lá, tem depois. Nossa, tem muitas opções, meu Deus. 5. Quanto já foi? Foi 5? Eu perdi a conta. You're going in. Estamos entrando, pessoal. Então vai dar a tela. É Slender. Notes. Meu Deus.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Só vou ter que apertar off. Ai, meu Deus. Eu vou perder. Tá bom. O que aconteceu?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Ganhei?